Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. Coming up on the show, 16 US states join forces to mount a legal bid against the president's attempt to secure funding for his promised border wall with Mexico by declaring a national emergency. Those states accusing Donald Trump of violating the Constitution and stealing money from state coffers. We take a look at how firebrand Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is harnessing the power of social media to boost her visibility and to take down trolls. And black and white Netflix-funded Roma looks poised to win big at this week's Academy Awards. How did a film about a domestic worker in the 1970s in Mexico come to be the standout film of the year? Let's begin with our number of the week, 16. That's how many US states have joined forces to file a federal lawsuit against the US president's attempt to secure funding for his border wall with Mexico by declaring a national emergency. The states, California and New York among them, hope to convince judges that Donald Trump's move to divert cash from their communities to build his signature campaign pledge are illegal. Solange Mougin takes a look.
From California and Colorado to New York and Washington, D.C., opposition is mounting against Donald Trump's declaration of emergency. On a national holiday, President's Day, protesters gathered in defiance of their current president's border wall and his use of a national emergency to tap into billions of dollars to build a barrier on the U.S.'s southern border. Among the protesters in Denver, the state's general attorney. For Colorado has joined 15 other states in legally challenging Trump's declaration.
In Colorado, we will be on the side of the rule of law. And because Colorado would be hurt by this illegal action, having funds that are dedicated to be spent here moved elsewhere, we will be joining an action to challenge this.
The lawsuit, filed in the state of California, but joined by nearly a third of the U.S.'s other states, most of which are run by Democrats, challenges the president's state of emergency. They argue in the brief that Trump's declaration, which was announced on Friday, is unconstitutional, that it tries to bypass Congress's control of the nation's purse strings, that it amounts to executive overreach, and that it's not necessary because a national emergency on the border, they say, doesn't really exist.
President Trump got it right when he said he didn't have to do this. Mr. President, you shouldn't do this.
The 16 states aren't the only ones suing the U.S. federal government. 3 Texas landowners and an environmental group have also filed injunctions. And even Congress may do the same when they return from the holiday recess.
He succeeded in winning fervent left-wing grassroots support during his presidential bid in 2016, and we can expect a rerun in 2020. The US Senator for Vermont, Bernie Sanders, has announced in an email to supporters that he's throwing his hat into the ring once again, vowing to build a vast movement to confront the special interests that he says dominate government and politics. It's a crowded race. A number of Democratic hopefuls are running on the progressive ticket that Sanders himself helped popularize last time round. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has returned to her home district of the Bronx in New York City for a symbolic swearing-in ceremony. The 29-year-old former bartender and liberal firebrand is part of a wave of Democratic congresswomen elected in November. But Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as she's known among her fans, has attracted the most attention, in part thanks to her fresh and instinctive use of social media. Yenna Lee has the story.
AOC, aka Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, coming home.
Congratulations.
She may work on Capitol Hill now, but the former activist and waitress is still firmly in touch with her Bronx base.
I want you to be brave with us, because the only way that we can continue to push the issues forward is if we're unafraid to speak truth to power and to stick to our guns. Because what is right is not always what is popular.
But popular she is, And Ocasio-Cortez's passionate conviction is only part of her appeal. As the youngest woman ever to be elected to Congress, she's a digital native, adept at interacting with Americans on social media. Whether it's candid posts about her Green New Deal economic stimulus proposal or tidbits from her personal life.
Matching pajama sets is key to productivity. I'm going to explain to
A relatable approach that helped her win an election and become one of the most recognizable members of today's Congress. Followers can now watch parts of her day-to-day life as a millennial lawmaker. AOC is also proficient at calling out her critics on social media. The Democrat regularly pokes fun at Fox News' coverage of her. In this tweet, for example, pulling to pieces the right-wing news channel's graphic of her radical new ideas, saying, quote, "They discovered our vast conspiracy to take care of children and save the planet." By reaching out directly to her constituents and supporters online, Ocasio-Cortez is taking control of her own narrative.
The Wall Street Journal is coming to my apartment to take some photos this morning. Or this afternoon.
So much so that the freshman representative was asked to share her social media know-how with fellow Democrats. Last month, she co-hosted a training session on the importance of digital storytelling.
Time now to take a look at some other stories making headlines from across the Americas. Brazil has announced that it will deliver humanitarian aid to the Venezuelan border in conjunction with the United States at the request of Venezuela's opposition leader Juan Guaido. Beleaguered President Nicolas Maduro has thus far refused US aid shipments entry. But Maduro's opponents are hoping the Venezuelan military on the border will disobey his orders to block the aid. This despite the Venezuelan army reiterating its obedience and loyalty to President Nicolas Maduro, following a call by the US President Donald Trump to switch loyalties to Mr. Guaido. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has fired one of his most senior aides and cabinet members amid a scandal involving campaign financing for some of his party's congressional candidates. Gustavo Bebiano's departure marking the president's first cabinet crisis since he was sworn in on the 1st of January. Bebiano, for his part, denying any wrongdoing. And another significant departure, this time in Canada. A top advisor to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has resigned amid allegations he pressured Canada's former Attorney General to avoid prosecuting a major Canadian engineering company. Principal Secretary Gerald Butts, who's one of Trudeau's closest friends, denies all allegations against him, but has said that the scandal should not take one moment away from the vital work the Prime Minister and his office are doing for all Canadians. It's the Netflix-produced film that sent waves across the world of cinema. Having already won a Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival and 4 BAFTAs, Roma has secured no fewer than 10 Oscars nominations. Directed by Alfonso Cuarón, the black and white film paints an intimate picture of a family in Mexico in the 1970s. So why exactly has Roma resonated with audiences to the extent it has? And to what does it owe its success? Tatiana Nassar takes a look.
And the BAFTA is awarded to Roma.
4 awards won at the BAFTAs this year. The road to Oscar glory looks promising for this film, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. The movie tells the intimate story of a family in Mexico in the 70s. It has so far received numerous awards, the first one being the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival in September, and then the 2 awards at the Golden Globes. In the Oscar race, the film is nominated in no less than 10 categories, including the most coveted ones: Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actress in a leading role for Yalitza Aparicio, marking the first time in Academy Awards history that a Native American woman is nominated. She was one of the film's breakout stars, playing a domestic helper in an upper-middle-class home in Mexico.
Since I was a little girl, I thought that the world of cinema was a world that was hard to reach for someone like me. something that I couldn't be able to achieve. But now I see that there are possibilities when you aspire to do something, like become an actress, without caring about these stereotypes.
At the young age of 25, she has become a role model and an icon for the indigenous people of her country. Roma also owes its success to the way it portrays domestic strife and social hierarchy amid political turmoil. Even if the story takes place in the 70s, it mirrors the social climate today, based on machismo, solidarity amongst women, and the class struggle.
Retreating back to a world of separation and isolation is not a solution to anything. It's simply an excuse to hide our fear within our basest instincts. Whether we like it or not, we're all connected, sharing space and time. And when we finally choose to embrace that connection, to show compassion towards one another, we all rise together.
This film is also Netflix's way of justifying its status as a force to be reckoned with in the world of cinema. The streaming platform produced the movie. With several awards under its belt, Netflix has now joined the big leagues of movie production.
When faced with sub-zero weather, some might decide to have fun making snow angels or snowmen. Not Toronto resident Robert Greenfeld, who, equipped only with a shovel and a lot of patience, recreated Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece Mona Lisa. Greenfeld filmed himself carving his creation on an ice rink and shared the time-lapse video on social media, writing, "This is not exactly a masterpiece, but I present the Snowna Lisa. Oh, you think that's bad? Wait till I tell you it should be hanging in the igloo." Well, at least it's his appalling pun and not mine. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Inside the Americas. You can watch this show again, along with many others, on our website, france24.com. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again next week.
We are journalists, and normally you have to listen to us, but you have things to tell us too. Maybe you've experienced a dramatic event, or you've got something important to say. You want to make a difference. That is why we created The Observers. Now, the first step is very easy. You get in touch with our team. Send us your images, tell us what you've seen. And then it's our job to get your voice out there, on our site, on social networks, on your mobiles and tablets, and on TV, of course. You can appear in our weekly show via webcam. Or perhaps we'll come see you in person, where you live, in your country, your town, and we'll work together on a report for our investigative show, The Observers Direct. So you get the idea. This show is your show, your way to get your voice out to the world.